Today's episode is brought to you by Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Fire Mountain Gems and Beads has supported jewelry making artists for more than 50 years, offering a wide selection of beads, gemstones, findings, tools, and creative supplies. Known for quality, consistency, and inspiration, Fire Mountain serves designers at every stage, from first projects to established creative businesses. Thank you so much, Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 307 of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Today on the show, we're talking about felt with my guest, Renae Bradley. Renae is the owner and creative director of Benzie Design, a colorful felt stitchery and craft shop founded as a creative outlet that gave her permission to rainbow-tize everything, especially wool felt. In business for over 15 years, Renae values the community that has been formed both online and within Benzie's local brick and mortar. Renae Bradley, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Abby.
I'm so excited to talk with you. I love Benzie, and I'm really excited to learn more about it. But to start, let's back up a little bit. So I know your shop is based in Illinois, and is that where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Iowa.
Oh,
So yeah, I grew up in Iowa, and then I went to college in Iowa. I met my husband in Iowa, and then he actually got a job in Illinois, and that's how we got here, and we've been here ever since. But
okay.
yes, I am an Iowa girl at heart. I love Iowa.
And were you creative as a kid?
For sure. For sure. I was always crafting or making something. I know I had several years of like junior high where I was really into like beaded loom crafts. So I had like seed beads, and I could
Oh,
make
yeah.
all sorts of like bracelets and hair clips with them. So I went through that, and I was really into it. This is in high school, where you don't really tell people that you're doing this in high school, but I was really into dollhouse miniatures, and I would spend like my Friday nights like working and decorating and making things for my dollhouse. So like I definitely had some creative, more unique hobbies as a child.
And what did your parents do for work?
My parents own their own business. My dad was an immigrant from the Netherlands, and they met. I guess their love story was they just met. My dad didn't know any English and barely knew my mom, and like almost immediately asked for her hand in marriage, and somehow she said yes, and they got married. And he was a milkman. He's passed away now, but he was a milkman. He bought a route from a local dairy and delivered milk like old school, first like door to door, and then eventually they were delivering to grocery stores and schools. So that's what they did.
That's cool. And did your parents work together in that business?
Yes, like my dad did the delivering, and my mom did all the books and kind of like the bids for like grocery stores and schools.
So you grew up in an entrepreneurial household.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so did you want to pursue your love of crafting in college, or what did you want to do?
Yeah, really didn't know what I wanted to do in college. And I feel like this is kind of where parents are integral in knowing what their kid is good at. And my mom was actually the one that said, "Hey, I think you should go for graphic design." And at that point, I had not really heard of it or knew what that was. I went to a really small school, so I actually didn't take any art classes in high school. And I was like, oh, graphic design sounds like a great degree to go into. So that's what I did. I went to Iowa State University, majored in graphic design, and that's really, even though I'm not necessarily doing graphic design right now, I think that's really helped me to understand the visual arts. So I think it was a good fit for me.
Yeah. And was that like kind of a focus on commercial work, or what did you think you might want to do with that, you know?
I really loved, logo design, like, loved logo design, and when I graduated, I really didn't wanna work for anyone else, and so I started just freelancing,
Oh
and so
wow,
I was
right
doing
from
right away.
college.
I actually
Wow.
started doing some of that in college, and then I did it
Okay.
right from college, so I did freelancing, so I didn't get to do a lot of corporate identity design then, but, I did a lot of freelancing, and then I learned through that that I really didn't like freelancing either. I had a hard time working for someone whose vision didn't necessarily align with mine, even though I know, like, I'm trying to communicate the customer's vision, like, somehow they just the tweaks that they wanted, I just never fully agreed with, so I never felt like I was really doing my best work, even though, like, I felt like I could do better, so that that was not something that I was super skilled with, was freelance, even though I did do it for several years.
Okay. And then so did you how what was your way out of freelancing? Like what did you take a regular job or
I never
yeah.
did take a regular job. I think we had babies right away. Not I think, we did. We got married, my husband and I got married, we had babies almost right away, and so then I went right into being stay-at-home mom, and then I was like, "Okay, I really need to supplement our family's income," and but yeah, I'm still being creative. So I had an Etsy shop, so this would have been maybe 2008. I had a handmade Etsy shop.
What were you making?
I was making a lot of hair clips, and then I was making a lot of felt-based things,
Were the
and
hair clips like beaded like back in high school
they
or
weren't. I stopped the beading. These were more like kid hair clips because I had a little
okay.
girl, so I had a
Okay.
daughter. So, like, it was like, oh, so it was like kid hair clips, but then I started making a few more party themed things like felt garlands and felt buntings, and I made some felt stuffed animals. So I just kind of started playing around with felt, and this was actually really important because then I realized like wait, what kind of felt are people using? Because they're clearly not using the big box store acrylic or polyester or recycled felt because I quickly discovered that pilled and was not working well. And then I realized that the felt that I wanted was not highly accessible to others. And then from my handmade shop, which was not profitable. That was more just a hobby. I mean, it was profitable, but not enough to you make a living out of. Then I discovered felt through that process, and my goal was to make it more accessible for other people. And I was like, well, this will be fun. I can photograph it really pretty. I did almost minor in photography in college. So I
Okay.
had some photography skills from that. That was definitely more fine art photography, but still the idea of how to work a camera and take beautifully composed images. I learned that also in college. And to this day, I take most of Benzie's photos. So,
Wow, that's
um,
really impressive because 'cause they're
yeah,
beautiful. And
yeah,
so
no,
I'm taking myself back to, like, 2008, 2009, and I was using felt at that time too and remember also discovering that, like, the big box store felt pills and is no good and that there was such a thing as wool felt or wool blend felt, and but can you talk about, like, where would you even go at that time to buy that?
yeah, like you really couldn't. I had to do like significant internet sleuthing to go find it. And I feel like I've always been super good at the internet. Somehow as a kid, our family was the first family in our community who got the internet. And so I felt like I was always super good at internet sleuthing. So I just went to town searching and figuring things out. And to this day have multiple different suppliers that we use for our felt and that also speaks to how different the internet is now. The internet is so like it's so much more funded by sponsors and advertisements now. It's a lot harder to find that true information. It was easier to find stuff back then than I think it is now.
Right. Okay. So, you were originally sourcing the good stuff for yourself so you
Mm.
could make better products on Etsy. When did it click for you that, hey, maybe I could just sell the raw material?
Almost immediately. Almost immediately, I was like, "This is gorgeous. I have too much. This is what I wanna do." So I actually started so my original website was like Benzie.etsy, and now I changed it to Benzie Design Etsy. So I kind of ran both shops simultaneously and then let go of the handmade shop pretty quickly after I found that other Etsy shoppers really liked this product and it made more sense. Like it's more fun for me to craft for myself and make the finished items for myself than to make them for other people in a more like a larger quantity. I just want to make one or two. I don't want to have to make a dozen. So it became pretty quickly that it was gonna be a smarter move just to sell the raw goods. And
And what,
it was fun, it was
yeah.
just fun, it was so pretty, you can make it so pretty and colorful, and I really loved being able to do that. I still love doing that.
And were the margins pretty good? And I just wondered, like,
Yeah.
who were the who were the customers for this wool blend and wool felt before you came along and people like you came along? In other words, these manufacturers were making it, you were sourcing it.
Right, that's true. So people had it. I mean, there were definitely people out there that sold it, but I would say they weren't making it as visually appealing or as easy to shop for
Okay.
as I had for the vision for Benzie. So, and I didn't start a supply store with the idea that we were going to grow into what we are currently now. I really thought it was going to be just fulfilling a few orders a day in my basement. And it is definitely, we've been open for 16 years now. So it's definitely expanded more than I thought. The demand for that product and in the way that we sell it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you were selling felt on Etsy, taking your own photos. I'm curious what the name Benzie refers to.
Yeah, it was a childhood hood nickname from my brother-in-law. So I would spend a couple weeks with my sister over the summer and with my sister and her and my brother-in-law, and she was really great. She would always take me to a craft store because again, I love crafting and let me pick out any project I wanted to work on for the week that I stayed with her. And I don't know, one time I was doodling my name, Renae, and somehow probably in junior high with big bubbly letters and hearts. And my brother-in-law looked at it, and for some reason, the angle he was looking at it, or my R maybe looked like a B, but he was like Benzie, and so he nicknamed me Benzie for like years after that. So it was a childhood hood nickname.
Right. Okay, that's really cute. I love it. All right. And so I know you were working out of your basement, you had too much felt. At some point, it really became too much felt. So what was the step toward moving out of your home?
Yeah, so it was a lot. We lived in a 700 square foot home with a 700 square foot basement. We had 3 kids in like a 2 bedroom, 1 bath house. Like we were cramped and I had my whole basement full of felt. Plus I had like a kid bedroom down there. So it was just like, oh my goodness, we cannot do another holiday season out of here. We've got to go find something. So I was looking around, but like real estate in Illinois is where we live is pretty pricey. So and like warehouses are like huge. Like it was just too much of a
Mm.
jump to go from a tiny house to this huge warehouse, but that's what we were running into. And then a storefront in our historic downtown area opened up at a really good rent rate, like shockingly good rent rate. rent rate. It was vacant for a few years and she was really looking to rent it out. And I'm like, I wasn't planning on opening a brick and mortar. I kind of just wanted to do this
Mhm.
undercover,
Mhm.
quietly for forever. But I'm like, this would be really fun to have a brick and mortar like that. Like, again, like I am super inspired by all the color. And I'm like, we could have it all on shelves and decorate it really cute. And I'm like, okay, the price is right. The square footage is right. We're going to move into this brick and mortar. And then we ended up staying there for 9 years in the cute little brick and mortar. It was fun. It was a fun season.
And so did you have to expand your inventory? Because I imagine like you're selling packs of sheets of felt at that
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
probably like hand pulled rainbow packs
Yeah.
and things like or
Yeah.
sorted
Yeah.
by color group. Um, but but to fill a brick and mortar where someone's going to walk in and not feel like the shelves are empty or there's no inventory, that seems like a big jump.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Like, we had like the fun thing about that first brick and mortar shop was we had like this wall of acrylic candy bins and we put all felted palms in there and you could choose your own colors and choose them individually and it was super fun. The amount of customers that would walk into our store and be like, "Oh, it's like a candy store in
Because
here."
again, these are like little felted balls that you can sew through, you can make a garland, you can put them on things. Those were also really hard to find back
Yes,
in
yes.
that at that
So
time.
I really love sourcing things. I really love a challenge and I kind of know what I like to craft with. And if I know what I like to craft with, there's probably other people that also like to craft with it. So it is a challenge for me to kind of find these hard to source items and get them into my store. So it really was not hard to fill the shelves. We filled them pretty quick and with Avian a couple years, we had two offices upstairs for one was our production annex and one was more of a storage annex where we could store all of our shipping material. So we filled it up pretty quickly and it kind of filled it up as what our customers were wanting, maybe a little bit of what I was wanting. We've also really focused on wool based items, so we'll blend felt, 100% wool. We just added felted wool and things like needle felting supplies, those felt palms. So a lot of wool based to more natural based materials has been our focus.
I want to take a minute now to talk about our sponsor, Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. And here is a message from Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Fire Mountain Gems and Beads has been a trusted resource in the creative industry for over 50 years, serving jewelry makers, designers, and artists worldwide. They offer an incredibly broad range of supplies, including beads, gemstones, chain, findings, tools, and components, supporting everything from beginning projects to professional production work. What really sets Fire Mountain apart is their focus on education and inspiration through free design ideas, project instructions, and technique resources. They're also a family-owned company, which shows up in how deeply they value community, creativity, and long-term relationships with artists. Fire Mountain is currently offering a free catalog, which is packed with inspiration, trends, and practical project ideas. Great for studio reference or creative planning. If you work with jewelry, mixed media, or small-scale product design, this is a brand worth knowing about and a catalog worth requesting. So listeners to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast can request a free Fire Mountain Gems and Beads catalog using the link provided in our show notes today. Thank you so much, Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. And now back to my conversation with Renae. And you were e-commerce first, then brick and mortar, but it sounds like your upstairs office, one of them was for shipping. So the e-commerce was still, I mean, what was the ratio there? In other words, like early on, do you remember what that was like?
Still the e-commerce, it was still 98% of our business was
Oh,
e-commerce
wow.
and like 2% was brick and mortar. And I would say now it's maybe 95% is e-commerce and just
Oh, wow.
5%. So it is still huge. Now we just moved to a new location and I imagine that that local brick and mortar number will increase because we're going to put a little bit more priority on our local community in the coming years. So
Okay. And so were you still on Etsy as the e-commerce platform?
yeah, we are still on Etsy to this day. We opened up our own Shopify website. I'm going to say maybe like year 6.
Okay.
So we opened up our own Shopify site mostly because I really like having full autonomy and control over my platform. I like to be able to make the decisions of how my website functions. And one of my goals is to make shopping as easy as possible and fun. And so I really love being able to make those decisions for my own shop. So our own website is our biggest marketplace, but we sell on a few other marketplaces as well: Etsy, Michaels, Amazon, and Fair, which is yeah, a business to business website.
And AO Lydia designed your current website. I wonder if you can share a little bit about like the before and after. And for folks who don't know what AO Lydia is, they're a Shopify design firm
Yeah,
who work with a lot of small creative businesses. But you can, set up a Shopify site on your own, and with your graphic design background, I'm sure you were able to do that. And so, what was it like before? And then,
yeah,
AO Lydia is not cheap, by the way. So, what was
right,
it like
right.
after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like this where they just kind of are scrappy and they figure it out and they do it themselves. And that's kind of how I got the business to where it's at now. I've just figured out I'm a creative problem solver. I just figured things out and got it done. And so when I did the Shopify website, I was like, "Oh, I'll just figure this out." I actually part of my freelancing was designing websites. I forgot to mention that earlier. So it's like, "Oh, I can do this." However, technology changes so quick. Like I started designing websites when you were coding with HTML, ML, and now it's like it is just so different. And so I came to be where I spent hours designing it and it was still not functioning in a way that I wanted to. And I was like, you know what? Spending so much time on this. I'm not working on the business. I'm working in the business. This is easily something that I can hire out. And at that point, I contacted Aolidia. I really like how they work with small creative businesses. So I felt like I didn't need to explain who I was or what my goals were. I just felt like they understood. And I had them redo my logo as well. And that was as a designer and as someone who loves to do logos, it's really hard to do your own logo. And they did such a great job. They just like, it's my logo like 10 years old now. I love our logo. Like every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's just perfect. It makes me so happy. So I think it was really, really important for me to hire a third party to go in and do that for me. And yeah, they did my website and they still do my website to this day. We're doing some updates right now and I still have them do it. I know that they are pricey, but they're full service. They do everything that you need to have done. And I just feel taken care of. They will maybe even come up with things that I would not have otherwise known. I feel that if I have a question about, what's the best way to optimize checkout for more conversions, they will just be able to help figure that out, either implement it for you or they'll be able to put you in the direction that you need to go into. They have access and services like SEO or they have the integration with Klaviyo. So I feel like they're just full service and it's just really nice that I don't have to be kind of the general contractor of my own website. Now I don't have ongoing plan or work with them, but every couple years I do some updates with them. And that's been really important to me because that's my number one platform and I want it to work really well. I want the shopping experience to be as smooth as possible for my customers. So it's been very, very valuable for me. It's my number one marketplace and I want to continue investing in that platform.
And did you see a sales increase from before to after?
Yes. Benzie is actually has seen sale increases year after year. So I can't say for sure, like oh my goodness, this they designed it and then my sales immediately went up. Forever, our Etsy platform was the biggest platform. And sure enough, after a while, it did take a couple years of me saying, hey, go to our .com, where then our .com sales eventually exceeded our Etsy sales, which was kind of a fun celebration because that's what I was working towards. But it wasn't immediate because I had to work to promote our website now when for years I've been promoting Etsy. So, but I think it's definitely paid off. You have to, if you're selling on Etsy, you have to be on Etsy's platform. You have to follow Etsy's rules. Um, Etsy is great. Etsy does a lot of things for a beginner shop owner, which I think is wonderful. But at some point, I need to have autonomy in how my listing looks and functions and what price I want to put on it. So the .com is definitely a better fit for us.
And how much of that promotion and success with moving people over to the .com had to do with email marketing? Because one of the other disadvantages of selling exclusively on Etsy is that you don't have the customer email address added to your email
Right,
list the way that
right.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah, we started out with Mailchimp like most people do, and we eventually moved over to Klaviyo. Maybe because of Lydia's influence on that. Klaviyo, I would say, is also another pricey one, but that is probably where I haven't pulled the stats recently, but I would say that's number one where revenue is coming in from is from that email. And I have a sole contractor that works on our newsletter for us. And she actually has the information for all of our new products that come in. She's the one that puts them on Shopify. And then she immediately goes and makes a newsletter for it. So that her role works pretty seamlessly. And especially with how social media is changing, I think it's even more important to have that newsletter. So I do like that.
Right. So if you're saying that email marketing is the number one way that business comes into your shop and 90+% of your business is e-commerce, then that right there is a huge plus in having a Shopify website. So just something for folks who are thinking about it to
Yeah.
consider,
Yeah.
because that email list is golden. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been great. It's been fun. It's been fun.
And so when you're sourcing, it sounds like you're really good at sourcing. You enjoy it. You're good at it. I'm sure that there have been things where I guess my question is, how do you know what to say yes to and what to say no to? Because I'm sure there have been things that you brought in that flopped, and weren't the right thing or
Yeah.
deviated from the essential mission of what Benzie Design is,
Yeah.
because you thought it was cute or whatever, and and then you decided to get to sort of stop carrying that. So what are the rules? You know what I'm saying when you're looking?
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple years ago, macrame was really big on trend. We're like, oh, well, let's go get some macrame rope. And that will be really, really fun. And yeah, we got it, but we didn't have a marketing plan to carry that out. We didn't have crafters that were making tutorials with the macrame. And there were so many other people at that point doing so well at their own macrame shops that we kind of got it, but we didn't have a plan to market it. And when I say market it, we didn't have makers or creators that were making new and constant products with that. So we try to stick to what we see our customers are wanting or using. So generally, we are known as a felt store, even though we have needle felting and embroidery. The general consumer still sees this as a felt store. So one of our newer products is felted wool, and that is Yes, we don't have a lot of projects with that, but that's a natural extension of what we already have. So let's put a lot of emphasis in on that. So that I did add without having a huge plan or marketing plan. Sometimes I do that. I have a really great operations manager here. So when she gets her hands into it, she will work a little bit harder and making sure that we have more tutorials that are surrounding that product. But I try to really make sure that it fits within, like, does it have wool in it? Does it have natural fibers in it? Um, to kind of still keep niche. However, in our new location, this brick and mortar location, we're having a lot of customers come in who want different products. Like because of Joanne's clothes, they're asking for zippers, or everybody loves yarn. We only sell yarn, I would say, for like crafters, not for knitters or crocheters. So it is definitely easy to get distracted by like, oh, we had this one customer come in and they want zippers. Now I want to get all the zippers and all the colors. And then realize, Renae, we're not going to sell all those zippers. We don't have projects for those zippers. So I just think of is this a product that really blends seamlessly with our main product of felt? Is it something that is timeless? I really like a material because I feel like with macrame, that was, even though we still are macrame, I feel like that was a little bit more of an on trend craft. So I like products that have more versatility, like felt can be used all the time for anything, regardless of the season or the decade. So I have a couple of those things in mind. I try not to get just too distracted with the small little products. Like I get really distracted with like sequins. For example, I really want to release like these sequin tins that have all different sorts of flower patterns in it. And I was like, Renae, this is not really a good financial thing for me to be spending my time on right now. I need to be focusing on, sometimes we use the $4 projects and not working on the $1 projects. We need working on the $4, the ones that are going to be bringing in more revenue. So sometimes I have to rein myself in.
I'd love to. Well, I want to talk about your maker team in a minute, but before we do that, I'm thinking that right from the start, customers must have come in and been like, "What kind of shop is this?" Because I've never been into a felt store before. I mean, I'd love to come. I'm hoping to come visit in person sometime. But like, if there was a felt store in Boston where I live, and I went there, I'd be like, "That's so weird. Like, it's a store, but it's not." A fabric store and it's not a yarn store and it's not a craft studio. And so it's a felt store. Like that's so I'm just thinking, of course, now with Joanne closing and everybody like kind of trying to find, new sources for their garment fabrics and all the other things. But did people from the start come in and be like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, forever, like, my parents and family are like, "What do you have?" Like, people just aren't getting it, and then especially when I just ran it out of my house, people didn't really get that this was, like, a real business, and they couldn't understand felt, and I didn't really realize, like, how unique it was until I started, like, visiting trade shows, and I was like, oh, there's really just yarn shops and quilt shops. There's no such thing as fabric or felt shops. So I realize like how niche we are in the market, but that's what's so much fun to me as well, that we have this like unique position. And I feel like we do a really good job of celebrating felt fabric. Yeah.
So you have this wonderful maker team, and I know you're recruiting right now, actually, for the next group. But and you talked a little bit about the importance of DIY content to support the products. So what was the origin of this? Because again, I kind of think of ambassador teams as something that really big businesses have. Like Bernina has an ambassador team, or the big fabric companies have ambassadors, but it's fairly unusual for a shop, like a brick and mortar shop, first of all, to have an ambassador team. I would consider you primarily e-commerce, I guess, but either way, it's not super common. But then again, you're also super niche. So maybe it would, it wouldn't function otherwise. But talk a little bit about the origin of it, what you've learned also about having a maker team over the time that you've had it?
Yeah, I wish I remember how many years. I'm gonna say maybe we've had a maker team for 5 years now. I could be off with that. It came from wanting to be a little more intentional with building community within Benzie and being able to reach out. So our first maker team, we we did the call for entries for it, and it was fascinating to see all these entries come in because you even just seeing the entries come in, you realize like, "Oh my goodness, this craft world is so much bigger than what you realize." Like, yeah, everyone is can scroll on their phone and look at all the makers out there, but when they're reaching out to you directly, and we're pulling up their Instagram or their portfolio, it just kind of widens your world of makers. And I didn't want Benzie to become just what the tutorials I make or the certain style that maybe Camille is the one who runs our maker team. I didn't necessarily want it to be her style or my style. I kind of want Benzie to reflect a community style, and bringing in makers allows just a different variety of people than if I was just making it. And so I just think it allows for more diversity. I think it kind of expands Benzie out and kind of opens our eyes to other people and other skills that are out there. And I'm hoping it does that for the people who subscribe to our newsletter. So we just are constantly providing some new content, but then again, larger community as well.
And is it okay if I ask, how are they compensated?
Yeah, we are compensated with gift cards and free products. So this is not a paid position, and that is made very clear. So we tend to get smaller, more new crafters, but that's what I really, really like. And people have that opportunity to build their skill through Benzie. But yeah, we do make it very clear they are not compensated financially. What has been fun is that some people that have come out from the maker team have collaborated with us later on for potentially paid sponsorship or paid posts. So there's been some opportunities that have come out from them, and some of the makers themselves have been able to develop and grow their own small businesses after being on our maker team. So it's been, I would say, mutually beneficial for the makers and for Benzie.
And so you mentioned you were selling on Fair, and Fair is a wholesale marketplace. It's similar to a trade show, but online. So it's where businesses come to source for their business. So brick and mortar retailers come to buy inventory to put in their shops. So what are you selling on Fair? Are you selling felt? Are you selling kits that you've created or something else?
Yeah, we have our own brand of needle felting kits. We have worked with other partners, like other creators that we have developed their kits under the Benzie brand name. Um, so we have several different felt kits, needle felting kits, and we do sell felt as well.
Okay. All right. So folks can kind of buy wholesale that way. You also mentioned you sell on Amazon. How has that been going? Because that could be a tough road.
It is a tough road. It has been so fascinating how on the seller end, it's, like, impossible to sell on Amazon. Like, it was like a road just to sell on Amazon, if you can even pass that hurdle, and then Amazon just changes the rules, like, regularly, and we don't know about it. Like, for example, we recently had an issue where one of our colors of felt, Amazon just took the initiative to change the name. So our fulfillment team is saying like, "Hey, we don't know what brown felt is because maybe we don't have a color named brown felt." Um, because they changed it from like chocolate to a more generic name that maybe made more sense to Amazon consumers. But then on the fulfillment side, we weren't knowing what to sell, what product to package for the customer. So yeah, that's a whole thing. I can see in the future needing to hire some sort of consultant for Amazon to help us. We haven't done that yet, so we don't put a lot of energy in Amazon. However, I still feel like it's valuable. We've had several customers that have either visited us in store or have became customers of our .com because they're like, "Oh, I saw you're in Amazon, but you're local, so now I'm just going to shop here." So I do think it's valuable to kind of have several different marketplaces, even
And
if
you mentioned right, even if Amazon's really rough.
yeah,
And you mentioned that you did go to trade shows, and that's where you realized that there were yarn shops and there were quilt shops, but there weren't felt shops. And you'd kind of invented your own niche. But
yeah.
do you still go to trade shows? Is that still a valuable
Yeah, we
source?
go to H&H every year since we're super close. It's literally like an hour away, so we're 40 minutes away, so we just drive. So we go to H&H. Me and Crystal, my operations manager, we've been going ever since the beginning. It is just too convenient not to go. And this year for F&F, we are actually having a whole booth, which I again, Crystal is totally in charge of that. I don't know what's going on with that, but we're going to actually show there. And then I went to a couple of quilt trade shows back in the day as well, but it was kind of hard to figure out, do I go to quilt trade shows or do I go to yarn trade shows? What kind of trade shows do I actually start going to? So, and now we just go to H&H because it's so convenient for us.
Yeah, and F&F is the new Fabric and Fiber Craft Festival, which is a consumer show prior to H&H. If anyone's sort of like, "What is that?" Because
Yeah.
that is something new, first year this year. And one of the things that strikes me as you're talking is that you sound like somebody who's very good at delegating. Like you have different people who are in charge of different things. You have somebody who's creating the booth for F&F, and you don't really even know what's going on with that. You have somebody who is doing inventory fulfillment with Amazon, and that person is the person encountering this brown felt issue, and all of these different things that are happening. And I think you expressed earlier that you really like to be in control and know what's going on, in control of the brand and all of that. So is it hard to delegate, or how has that been for you, and like
I would
how helpful is that too?
I would say I am not naturally good at delegating. I think if I want to be in a business that's growing and excelling and will be here for the test of time, the only way to keep that going is by delegating, is hiring staff that are more skilled than I am in the areas that I need. And I would say that's actually really, really challenging for me. And I think in the next even 18 months, that has to be a huge focus of mine, where I even get better at delegating and hiring um, people that can do the things that I can't. I just don't have time to do everything that all the ideas that I have in my head that I want done. So the only way for us to continue in this growth cycle is to delegate. So I think I'm not naturally good at it. I've just really have had to learn it.
And have you considered things like offering a subscription box or writing a book, right? Like there's all these things one could do in life with a business, but that doesn't necessarily mean one should do them. And I wonder if you've weighed some of those options.
Yeah, the team here is like begging for a subscription box. They are constantly like, "Can we do one, please?" And I think if that's going to happen, we would need to hire someone in charge of the subscription box because I feel like there's so much on my plate. I can't add one more thing. But we definitely have a lot of ideas in ways that we want to grow. I think that goes back to me learning how to be a better delegator and also learning how to hire the skilled people that I need in order to get a subscription box or to, make all my dreams come true.
Right. And so are there things coming up for Benzie that we should know about, or new things that are on the horizon that might be fun to hear about?
We moved to a new location last year. One of my personal goals was to buy a building for Benzie. So last year I purchased a video store. So, all the video stores went out of business. So I purchased a video store and we went through a huge renovation of this past year. And then we moved in June of this past summer. And again, we really worked hard to make sure that our online system was going well, our e-commerce portion was going well. And so now we're having a grand opening more for our local community coming up in March, but we're going to have classes and make and takes and giveaways. So that is kind of like what we're all working forward to here. And then trying to make a little bit of a transition to focusing more on our local community, which we have not, even though we've been a brick and mortar for 9 years, it was tiny and crowded with inventory. It was really hard to really reach out to the locals. And now we have this big place that's kind of our new goal for this year. But for products, because I love product sourcing, we are really working on getting our felted wool line up. And I have been wanting to expand our needle felting line forever. So I'm going to work really hard to do that this year. And we also have, we design deep etch dyes that work really, really well for our felt. Paper crafters are familiar with dyes. We've made it more felt friendly. I really want to expand that program with Benzie too. But again, going back to the delegating is making sure that we have the right staff to do that. So we have a lot of exciting things to do.
And I want to get to your list of recommendations. So you wanted to recommend something called Toyo tins. So what
Yeah.
are these? They're colorful, it sounds
Okay,
like.
so I'm just going to back up to every craft project I'm working on. I just love it when all of the supplies color coordinate with whatever project I have. So I like it when the scissors coordinates with the embroidery floss I'm using. And so our shop just got a whole bunch of Toyo tins in, and they're just colorful, like super good quality, made in Japan boxes, and they're amazing for storing craft
Ooh,
supplies in, and
I
they're
need to get
colorful.
some.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we actually just got a shipment in yesterday and today, and I'm like, "Oh, and I want this color, and I want this color." So again, I'm huge on color. I'm huge on color coordinating, so I just love it when everything works together.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds awesome. Okay. And then you're using an app to sort of control the scroll, and it's called Freedom. I've not heard of this one.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be really honest, I did ask my son's really into social media as well, like as a content creator. And so I was asking him, I'm like, I'm spending way too much time on this. What are some apps that I can use to manage my time better? And he gave me a couple, and then I ended up just landing on this one. It is a paid app. I do have to pay for it. But I am able to manage what I would say is my most distracting apps. I think, again, we were talking about how the internet has changed drastically, social media has changed drastically. I feel like I used to be more of the content creator, and now I feel like it's just too easy to get sucked in, and I want to use my time well and efficiently. So this app will block my usage of my most overused and time wasting apps. So that has been a huge lifesaver. I've been doing it for about a year.
So during certain hours of the day, you just can't
Yeah.
get on.
Yeah, I have it blocked actually for most hours of the day now. So it's great. And I feel like even like I just have more mental clarity. And then I feel like it used to be like I would look at these apps and be creatively inspired to make things. And now I just feel like it just kind of sucks all of my creative inspiration. So no more. We're going to be done with that. So that app really
Right.
helps.
It kind of changed in its nature and impact on your life, it sounds like, over time as the social media apps have changed themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then your last recommendation are Benzie felt swatch charts, which coordinate with DMC floss. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. So again, I love color. I love a good swatch chart. That I love being able to, like, if we're getting a new product, like, oh, let's order the swatch chart. I love the swatch chart. I love Benzie swatch charts. They have, a lot of people don't know this when they get it. Not only do you get the real swatch of the felt on it, but it also has the coordinating DMC number. A lot of people don't know that. And it's a
Mm,
huge time saver. Instead of like looking through all 600 skeins for what you need, we just tell you what's the best match.
right. So it'll match the floss color matches the felt. So if you're doing a project, you have a perfect color match.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
Just
Well, so good. This has been really great, Renae. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I love talking to you.
well, thanks for having me, Abby. This has been fun.
And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. This episode was sponsored by Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Fire Mountain Gems and Beads is a go-to resource for jewelry makers seeking quality materials, thoughtful curation, and ongoing creative education. Their extensive selection of beads, gemstones, chain, findings, and tools is supported by decades of industry experience. And be sure to request that free catalog through the link in our show notes today. Thank you so much, Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustryalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.